I hereby call this meeting of TV Toastmasters Advanced Club 9523 to order. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Give yourselves a round of applause. To all my fellow Toastmasters and honored guests and those of you out in TV land, happy holidays. The holidays is quite often about being able to communicate with family members. How often have we butchered that up during the course of a holiday meal? Well, this is your opportunity to pick up some effective communication skills, the opportunity to show some leadership at the table as the turkey's being carved. We have an exciting program for you today. We have two gifted speakers. I know because I happen to be one of them. And I'd like to first welcome our guests. Toastmasters that are present today in our studio audience. Mr. George Graham from Worthington, Ohio. Give him a round of applause, please. Laura Lee Gayfield, the president of CIC Speaks, a President's Distinguished Club here in the Cincinnati area. Her son, Scott Gayfield. He's not a Toastmaster yet, but we're hoping. We have aspirations. Joe Schwerling, a distinguished Toastmaster, a man about town who's involved in 5 different local clubs that we know of. He's otherwise known as the Man in Orange. You'll see later when he comes on stage. We have Miss Verna Gibson, an ATM Silver, with us today. We have a president of Gift of Speech, one of the newest clubs in the Cincinnati area from the Luxottica Corporation, Mr. Ed Reardon. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have Veronica Sanford, who is an officer with Fifth Third Bank and the newest club in the Cincinnati area. Okay, I'm not going to take up any more time. I'm going to immediately introduce our Toastmaster of the day. She is an accomplished Toastmaster. She is a competent communicator. She is a competent leader. I also happen to know her quite well because she's my wife, Miss Rita Reece.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hello, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. It's nice to see everybody here. Right before a holiday, it's kind of hard to get people to come, but we have quite a crowd here. And to not take too much of your time, I'll keep the meeting rolling. That's my job as Toastmaster, to make sure everything runs smooth. I would like to announce our word power and awe counter for the day. Mr. Joe Schwerling, Man in Orange, the Toastmaster that always wears orange, and he's going to introduce our word.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In conjunction with the holiday season, I propose using various variations and synonyms of the word holiday. Not just because I've lived on Holiday Lane for over 50 years. We're in the holiday season. Of course, you got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all these holidays throughout the year. Anniversaries, birthdays, any day off work, an absence of something. Say something, a holiday in, a script or might be in a video. If a section of your TV screen goes blank, that may be a holiday. I printed off a list of synonyms for the word holiday. Unfortunately, that list took a holiday. So I'm having trouble finding it. But you get the idea. Any use of the word holiday or anniversary or anything that relates to an absence, something to celebrate, a celebration. And at the end of the meeting, I'll give a report on the use of any holiday-related words. I'll give a report on any grammatical observations, areas where language and grammar are unusual, enhance what's being said, and areas where there's some room for improvement. And I will also give a report on the number of ahs and ums and other fillers that we try to avoid as much as possible. But there's no award for the maximum. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Joe. The next portion of our program today is the table topics. And that's where you give a response to a question without any rehearsal. You have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to whatever the table topics master asks you to do. And our table topics master today is Gordon Kelly. He's from Maysville. He had a long drive to get here, dodging the deer, and he will be leading us in table topics master. I'm sorry. Here he is.
Good morning to our television audience and all the group here today. It looks like a pretty good group. I am the table topics master today. I have 4 table topics, so until I get through 4, you may be on the list. The first item is going to be, if you could do anything you want, what would you do with all of the election signs? Jane. And I don't want to try to pronounce the last name because I'm going to mess it up.
If I wanted to do anything with all the election signs, first of all the election signs that you find around, driving around, are destructive. There are always such huge signs and always one-sided. You go to one part of town, they are advocating to one person. Another side of town is a different person. I'll tear them down. They don't give me any information that I need to get anybody elected in the office. So what I'll do with all the election signs, I'll tear them down. Thank you.
One member of the audience seemed awful active this morning, so that person probably needs to get a chance to come up here. Politics and Thanksgiving. Give your opinion on how turkey may apply to these 2 events. Veronica Sanford.
I love our country, and I love the people in our country, and I believe that despite the fact that some of us have egos, I'm sure that the people in politics are doing their very best. So I would never draw an analogy between any type of animal and a human being. But I could say that I'm very grateful that we have this holiday season to think about what is so wonderful about our country and how it started. The turkey is an animal that was killed to sustain our forefathers. And they had Thanksgiving dinner, and I think that's great. I also wish and pray that the people in Washington think about what's really best long-term, not only for our country, but also for our nation and our world as we go forward in this coming 2-year party agenda.
Thank you. How would you view Thanksgiving through the eyes of a turkey? Ed Reardon. Good morning.
Toastmaster. How I would view Thanksgiving through the eyes of the turkey. Well, with the holiday season come upon us, there's 2 opportunities or more for me to lose my neck and be placed on many people's tables. I'd be quite concerned. I'd be running towards the corner of the coop to see if I could avoid it and maybe live through the next holiday season. But if I did end up on somebody's plate, I'd be gratified to know that I'd be helping to go sustain somebody and their family by providing some type of nourishment. Because in this holiday season, when it becomes very, very cold outside, we need to have sustenance in ourselves to keep our bodies going to make sure that we can make it through the holiday season. Thank you.
This is probably going to be the most important question I ask or present today, and it usually applies to chickens, but we're going to use turkey. Why did the turkey cross the road? Laura Lee Gayfield.
did the turkey cross the road? Well, obviously he's not the one on your dinner plate since he still has legs and is running across the road. Maybe it's because he liked, as opposed to his cage home, the free-range home on the other side. Free-range turkeys are becoming very popular as a way of expressing our freedom, even though the turkey did not become the national bird as originally suggested by one of our country forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, right? Isn't he the one that suggested that? We do honor the turkey every year around Thanksgiving time, as it brings our families together. Even when we're spread far and wide, it's kind of like the bright star in the morning sky that brings us together and lets us know that there's hope and happiness and family with us, no matter where you are. So the turkey is just getting to the other side to find more of his family. Thank you.
And now we know why the turkey crossed the road, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Good job, Tabletopics Master, Mr. Kelly. Moving right along, the next part of our program will be the rehearsed speakers. And our first rehearsed speaker, O'Cormac. Now to introduce our first speaker. His speech is called Claws Incorporated. It's Darren Henderson. Now Darren, you've got to excuse him, he just had dental surgery. He's not 100% yet, but he's taking one for the team and giving his speech anyway. So welcome, Darren Henderson, Claws Incorporated.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and members of the media. My name is actually Darren Snow, and I am the spokesman for Claws Incorporated. I'd like to thank all of you for traveling this long distance to the North Pole today to hear a little bit about our operation. My goal today is to lift the veil of secrecy regarding the Claws Corporation. Now, unfortunately, the CEO of Claws, Santa Claus, could not be here today. As you can imagine, he's a little busy this time of year. But I would like to introduce you to a few of our other corporate officers who are in attendance. Many of you remember this first man from the biography of one of our more famous employees, Rudolph. Now this was a little elf who wanted to become a dentist. Well, this little guy didn't become a dentist, but he did go off to Harvard Business School, get an MBA, and I would like to introduce to you now our Chief Financial Officer, Hermie. Hermie? Hermie? Please take a bow. Thank you. Next, let me introduce our VP of Marketing. Now this woman is living proof of the saying that beside every great man stands a greater woman. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Claus. Now the sole purpose of Claws Incorporated is to deliver toys to boys and girls throughout the world on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. I'd like to take the next few minutes to tell you a little bit about our operation. Now, Claws Incorporated is an 800-year-old entity. We incorporated in 1988 to reduce the liability issues that were present prior to incorporation. As you can imagine, the fact that Santa enters millions of homes on Christmas night can create somewhat of a liability issue. We have a pretty big legal department to deal with those lawsuits. Now we have 3,000 employees. 90% of our workforce is comprised of the indigenous population of this part of the North Pole. They were once known as elves, but our human resources department has determined the label elf is somewhat of a derogatory term. So we like to refer to them as Christmas team members from this point forward. Now, as you look around this opulent corporate compound, you may be asking yourself, how do we fund such a large operation? Well, we have 3 primary revenue streams. 40% of our revenue comes from royalty payments from the use of the Santa likeness. So every plastic Santa, every dancing Santa, every Santa ornament, every Santa suit, every department store Santa pays a percentage of their sales to Claws Incorporated. Now, 30% of our revenue of Claws comes from the sale of proprietary technology to the major toy companies. MIT, in our Claws labs, we have engineers from all the major schools. MIT, Stanford, Purdue, North Pole Institute of Technology, all the best schools have engineers at Claus Incorporated. Finally, the other 30% of our revenue comes from the sale of toys manufactured by our Christmas team members. Our toys are sold under store brands at Toys R Us, Target, Walmart, all the major retailers. Now let me tell you a little bit about a few of our recent innovations. As you know, our operation is now very much online. Many of the children now send us emails to tell us what they would like on their Christmas list. And that allows us to gain much greater efficiency in filling those requests. Many major companies like Dell, GE, FedEx have all benchmarked our inventory and order filling process. It's very efficient and very impressive. We've also deployed Six Sigma statistical methodologies to toy making. For example, in 1999, a set of wooden blocks took three Christmas team members 1 hour to manufacture. Well, now, that same set of wooden blocks only takes 5 minutes for one Christmas team member to manufacture. Next, I'd like to share two important announcements that we're very proud of. We have finalized a contract with Mark Burnett, the creator of Survivor and The Apprentice, to film a reality series featuring some of our Christmas team members during the next Christmas season. It will be called North Pole Exposed. And finally, I would like to dispel a couple of rumors. Santa will not be appearing on either Celebrity Fit Club or Dancing with the Stars. Those are unfounded rumors. Now, the next comment I have is a little bit of a somber note. Due to the high cost of labor in the North Pole, as you can imagine, it's very expensive to heat this compound in 50 below zero temperatures. We have decided to outsource the manufacture of some of our toys to China. And I am happy to say our displaced Christmas team members will be given 2 months severance. But I would like to ask for a little bit of sensitivity due to the small stature of some of our Christmas team members. I prefer that you not call this downsizing. Now, another question people commonly ask is, how can Santa deliver toys to millions of children in one night? Well, that's a really good question. But actually, let's be accurate. Santa delivers toys to 1/2 billion children every Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. 1/2 billion. Also, when you think about it, due to time zones, Santa actually has over 24 hours to make these deliveries. And of course, there are some trade secrets that I just cannot divulge. How can reindeer fly? How can Santa get into and out of any house undetected? Where does he keep all those toys on his sleigh? Well, let's just say that there's some magic and a whole lot of science that goes into the answer to all those questions. And there's something that I will have to leave to your own imagination. Now, at this point, I'd like to take a couple questions from the audience. Any members of the media?
I've got
Yes.
one. I've heard rumors that Santa was involved in the recent breakup of Britney Spears and her husband. Can you comment on these rumors?
You know, I thought twice about inviting the National Enquirer to this press conference, and now I really regret that. I can't believe you asked that kind of question with Mrs. Claus sitting right next to you. You know, Santa and Mrs. Claus have been happily married for over 800 years. Santa could be Britney Spears' great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And just because there are pictures of Mrs. Spears with a bearded, rotund gentleman who likes to wear red does not mean that person's Santa. So I'm really disappointed in that question, and obviously there's no truth to that rumor board. Any other questions?
I do have a question. I have a question. Has Santa ever considered a career in politics?
You know, a lot of people ask that question. Santa's obviously very popular throughout the world. He is really a citizen of the world. But Santa has no interest in politics. For one thing, Santa has very strong beliefs, and some of his beliefs can be somewhat controversial. For example, Santa is one of the few people who actually likes global warming. I mean, come on, we're in the North Pole. Santa loves a degree or two increase of the temperature every 25 years. So no, Santa has no interest in getting into politics. Any other questions from our media members? Yes.
I heard Santa might be in the market for a new sleigh. Is he planning on selling the old one on eBay?
No, I wish I could say so, but as I mentioned earlier, Santa's sleigh is very, very critical and very, very special. As a matter of fact, governments from throughout the world, including the CIA, have tried to infiltrate Claus Incorporated because our technology and our science is so far above anything that any other government has that we cannot divulge that type of secret. But it's a good question.
Yes, sir. Every Christmas Eve, our North American air defense system picks up Santa and his reindeer on radar.
Yes.
Well, with all this magic and technology, how is it possible that Santa is letting us see him in the sky?
That's a good question. And you know, we do have the ability to cloak Santa's sleigh, much like a stealth bomber. Of course, we've had that technology for hundreds of years. But from a safety standpoint, it's much better for us to allow ourselves to be seen. That way, other airplanes, anything else in the sky can see Santa coming. So while we could easily cloak ourselves when we choose to, we decide not to for public safety. But good question. Yes?
Do you think Santa will be on Dancing with the Stars?
Excuse me?
Do you think Santa will be on Dancing with the Stars?
Well, I can tell you, young man, that Santa's pretty light on his feet. And I have no doubt he could win, but Santa, some things are Santa's just has to keep above, and Santa will not be on Dancing with the Stars. But he does watch it, and he does find it very entertaining. Any other questions? Finally, I would like to say that the best thing about Claus Incorporated, and the best thing about working here, is that all of our profits are used to provide children with toys at Christmas time. That is the sole purpose of this organization. Now, our challenges are significant. The toys have gotten more complex. The kids are a bit more demanding sometimes. And the number of kids who believe in Santa is getting bigger every day. But Claus Incorporated is committed to continuing to bring smiles to little boys and little girls' faces on Christmas morning for the next 800 years and beyond. So from everyone at Claus Incorporated, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Darren. Holidays, what a great time. Everybody gets in a good spirit, get off work. It's a wonderful time. Right now, I would like to take 1 minute of silence so that our evaluators can evaluate Darren. Timer, would you time 1 minute? Before I introduce our next speaker, which is going to be Gary Reece, I'd like to introduce his evaluator, which is going to be George Graham from
Okay, Gary's speech is to make the topic relevant to the occasion and to understand and express the feelings and needs of the audience. And it should be forceful, confident, and positive. We'll want to see whether he used stories, anecdotes, and quotes to convey his or her message. And did he give us strong mental images? And how about body language? Overall, did he uplift us or tear us down? I'm confident that he'll uplift us. Gary?
Thank you very much, George. Gary's speech, well, Gary is an ATMS and a CL, and he's on Project 10 from his Competent Communicator Manual, and his speech is called Inspiration or Perspiration. And I know Gary pretty well since he's my husband. I'd like you to meet Gary Reece.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. No, you can't get a kiss. Inspiration versus perspiration. What's it all about? Where did that famous quote come from? First, let me tell you about a man who's a famous American named Paul Harvey. On National Public Radio, he has a segment called The Rest of the Story. And he shares anecdotes and details and facts about someone in history that we don't really know about, things we've never heard before or never knew. Today I'm going to share some about a man. Some of these facts you may have known, but a great deal I'm willing to bet you've never heard before. And this man is a famous American, voted in fact to be the scientist of the millennium, the man who's responsible for our having lights in our homes, the ability to have electricity in our cars. I'm talking about Thomas Alva Edison. The rest of the story. First off, before we get to Thomas Alva Edison, keep this in mind. At this time of year, many of us are down on ourselves because we haven't fulfilled the roles or duties or obligations or promises that we made to ourselves earlier in the year, things that we were going to get accomplished during the course of the past year. But we have a renewal, we have redemption, because New Year's is right around the corner. We have a chance to start it all over again. But all too often, many people give up during this time of year. They view themselves as failures. That's what this presentation is about you're not a failure. And I'll explain further by using Thomas Alva Edison as the metaphor for this message. Thomas Alva Edison was born in Milan, Ohio. At the age of 7, after a mere 12 weeks in school, he was kicked out because of bad behavior. Today, we would say that he had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We would probably pump him full of Ritalin to keep him under control. He had an inquisitive, curious mind. He wanted to know how everything worked. How did it operate? And he would ask adult after adult, how does that clock work? And most adults, not unlike myself, would say, I don't know. And his next word would be a statement and a question rolled into one word. Why? He always wanted to know why people didn't know why it worked. That's the way he thought. How did it work, and why don't you know? At age 11, he was curious about electricity, which was a fairly new invention by Fermi and Tesla. He had his own laboratory in the basement underneath his house, and this worried his mother to death because quite often he would have toxic chemicals, chemicals that were poisonous, chemicals that were quite violent and could easily erupt, explode, or catch fire with the easiest of provocations. Some chemicals that if they reached just mere oxygen, they would explode. He kept them in a laboratory in his basement, much to his mother's chagrin. At age 12, he was already an adult, at least considered to be an adult by other people. He had studied and learned Morse code by age 12. And Morse code was brand new to the world at this point in time. And to give you a time frame of when he lived, Abraham Lincoln was one of his childhood idols. By age 14, he took what he knew about Morse code and would listen in at the railway station and listen into the news coming over. And he would know exactly what the news was from all over the country as it came across the electric wire. And then he took it back to his home, and he was the very first person, and consider this, he's only 14 years of age, he was the very first publisher to ever take something and print it by typeset and publish it into a magazine and put it on a railway. He would actually go and sell it on the railway cars. The first publisher to do this at age 14. He was pulling in a grand sum of over $10 a day. And if you consider what $10 a day was back then, most grown men didn't make $10 in 2 weeks. And he was pulling it in each day. By age 16, he had his very first invention patented. Unfortunately, it was a dismal failure because nobody wanted it. He invented the very first electric ballot counter, a vote counter for elections, for any decisions that needed to be made on a macro level, nationwide, or a micro level in a boardroom. You could instantly put your vote in and it would be tabulated, and you'd know who the winner was. But the politicians didn't like it. They said the public doesn't need to know this. The people who are disenfranchised don't need to know that they're disenfranchised. They don't need to know that we've liberated them from their vote. So nobody would buy his electric ballot counter. It failed. By age 20, he had his very first successful invention patented. He was paid $40,000 for the first ever stock ticker, Consider how much $40,000 is back in the 1800s. This man was wealthy. He started a laboratory and started a company. I'll tell you what the name of that company is in just a little bit. But before I get to that, I want you to know that he invented a thing called the quadruplex transmitter. At that point in time, the duplex transmitter was invented by a man named Alexander Graham Bell. His invention was the telephone. But when he talked over this duplex transmitter, the sound was so bad that it sounded like this. That's the sound that you had from the first telephone invented by Alexander Graham Bell. He beat Edison to the punch in getting that patented, and therefore he's known today as the inventor of the telephone. But with the quadruplex transmitter, you could hear voices clear as a bell, clear as an Alexander Graham Bell. And his invention, though, was too late. Even though today we're still using quadruplex transmitters on phones. Essentially, that's the technology that's still good to this very day. He only missed by a couple of months of beating Bell, and he would have been known as the inventor of the telephone. I just can't see it being Edison Bell. He was the inventor of the phonograph. Now consider how important that is. Not only are you able to record people's voices and play it back, but you're able to play it back and keep it for posterity. This was not ever done before. Once the words were uttered, they were done. Now they were able to be repeated over and over and over again by the same person. He invented what was known as the Vitascope. Have you ever seen those little pictures that go and they show a movie like? That's the Vitascope. That was the precursor to movie motion pictures. His company was known as Edison's General Electric. Today we know it as General Electric. It's one of the biggest companies in the entire world. General Electric. Thomas Edison founded it. He created the dictaphone, the mimeograph, the storage battery, the batteries that you use for a flashlight, the batteries you use to start your car. He created the world's first power plant. He produced mass electricity. All total, during the course of his life, he had 1,093 patents, which is still an individual record today for one single person. He averaged, since the time he put his first patent in, he averaged one patent every 2 weeks for the rest of his life. Now here's the key to this whole presentation. The light bulb, which everybody talks about, he gave us light. It took him 45 hours to make one light bulb. Now keep this in mind, this is the test pattern, this is the test bulb. And he had to make a filament that was just thick enough that it would hold an arc and create the light. But it couldn't be too thick or it wouldn't have the arc to make the light. And quite often the bulbs would explode right there in the laboratory. 45 hours of work to see, boom! 45 hours. That's like 3 or 4 days in a row. It would take him usually about a week to do it because not all those days did he have light because the light bulb hadn't been invented yet. That's what he was working on. Imagine 716 failures of 40 hours on each bulb. Every time he made a bulb, he had to make another one to see if it would work. 716 failures times 45 hours. Failure after failure after failure. And every time that light bulb blew up, or every time it didn't work, he felt like he had failed. But he had a mindset that we could adapt, that we could learn from. And that mindset was this. Failure is not a person, it's an event. Failures are simply opportunities to try something over again, but this time a little smarter than you were the first time. He said, you have not failed when you quit trying. He said, the only time you have failed is when you quit trying to succeed. It's when you quit. That's when you're the failure. I want you to consider this. He was friends with Madame Curie, Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, and President Hoover. He said, it's not how many times you get knocked down that defines you, but how many times you get back up. His most famous quote is that success is 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration. Keep trying, keep fighting over and over again until you succeed, and you will be a success. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Gary Reece, with your perspiration or inspiration. And now we'd like to take a minute of time for our evaluator to evaluate Gary's speech. 1 minute, please. Now this portion of our Toastmasters meeting is where somebody is appointed to evaluate our speakers, our two speakers. Our first evaluator is Carol Cormalick, who will be evaluating Darren. Our first part is our general evaluator, who will be introducing her team, and that is Laura Lee Gayfield. She will be introducing her team, and they will be doing the evaluations of our speakers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rita. I am the general evaluator. My name is Laura Lee Gayfield. I'm just a general evaluator as a guest to this meeting. But it is very interesting to see how other clubs run other meetings. There are thousands of Toastmasters clubs and communities and businesses all throughout the world, including many in Cincinnati. Some things that I have noticed of our meeting so far is I really appreciated Carol's Carol, there she is. Carol's introduction before the cameras began rolling to those of us who are especially guests to the club of the finer points of how this works. I am used to a speaker. Actually, I'm not used to the microphone. I'm used to a lectern. And it was interesting to know some of those finer points, what to do and what not to do. Helps make things better for the audience at home. I enjoyed the table topics. Oftentimes the table topics at the clubs does revolve around turkey and Thanksgiving for those meeting around this time of year. The table topics is an impromptu, off-the-cuff speaking opportunity for those that do not have other roles typically or do not have their prepared speeches already in place. The speech objective introductions were very helpful for those of us who are getting to be new to Toastmasters, or maybe just as a refresher, because each speech, you have initially 10 speeches, and each one of them builds and gives you a different item to focus on, different objective, so that you get better as you go through those first 10 speeches. Now for the actual speeches themselves, we have evaluators. They have a set of questions that was given to them out of the Toastmasters International book to help them evaluate how the speaker achieved the objectives in the speeches that they gave. So our first evaluator of Darren's Claws Inc. speech is Carol Cormalick. Carol.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, our most welcome guests, and our viewing audience at home. In case you just tuned in, I wanted to let you know that the speech I'm going to evaluate by Darren Henderson was the project on a fact-finding report, prepare a report on a situation, event, or problem of interest to the audience, deliver sufficient factual information in your report so the audience can make valid conclusions or a sound decision, and answer questions from the audience. And he had 5 to 7 minutes for the speech and 2 to 3 minutes for the question and answer period. And most importantly, Darren, I think you did a fantastic job. I was curious and I was pleased, a little apprehensive with your brilliant speech comparing the mysterious Claws Inc. with a corporation that we're familiar with. I thought you were very creative in that speech. I like your speeches because I know it's always going to be your creative mind comes forth. You helped lift the veil of secrecy of the Claws Inc., and I thought it was very well organized. I liked how you made a smooth transition from one thought to the other. It was very smooth. It didn't jump around. You logically went from one thought to the other. I liked the humor that you brought into it, and being a short person myself, I really liked that you said when the elves had to find another job that you didn't call it downsizing. That was very clever. Right? You had humor, the delightful humor throughout. There was one question in here that about visual aids. You did not have any visual aids, and it might have been helpful, maybe one of the wooden blocks to show the difference, something like that. But other than that, on the what you did, and the question and answer period, I thought was brilliant. The way you answered the questions, you were able to answer even difficult questions. You answered very smoothly. I thought it was great what you did, and you responded excellently in the questions. And how well did you conclude the question and answer period about ending that the profits supported buying toys for the children? One of the things that's helpful, if you do presentations and have a question and answer period, it gives you a little more control. If you say, we have time for 4 or 5 or however many questions you want, and then if a person asks you a difficult question that you don't want to answer, rather than have them put you on the spot, you say, I believe that answer will take a more detailed answer than I have here, and I'll meet you on a one-to-one basis outside after the meeting. And that way, that's a smooth way to answer any questions. But overall, I think you did a fantastic job. I enjoyed your speech, Darren. Thank you very much. Madam General Evaluator.
The evaluator of our second speech, the second speech was the most recent one provided by Gary Reece, Inspiration or Perspiration. I will like to introduce to you Mr. Orange Toastmaster. Oh, wait, no. Oh, our very own George Graham. George?
Difficult part of this thing, you have 2 tasks to do. One is to say what's good about the thing, and the other is to say what's bad. The first part was easy. Very excellent speech. The topic was relevant and expressed the feelings and needs of the audience. You were forceful, confident, and positive. And you used stories and anecdotes to convey the message. Strong images. It was simply an excellent one. Slightest thing was you could have made notes a little less obvious. But what I liked about it is it pointed out the practical value of trying again and again to accomplish an objective. So overall, an excellent speech.
And now we will have our awe counter and grammarian report by Joe Schwerling. Joe?
Evaluator. There was very little to report on as far as ahs and ums or any fillers, so everyone did very well, so congratulations everyone on that. I'm usually, I take very few holidays when it comes to the ahs and ums. They seem to slip in quite regularly. And as far as the word of the day, the holiday, there were a few references to Christmas and Thanksgiving by Gordon and oh no, I've misplaced that note. But on a lighter note, I did find my list of synonyms for the word holiday that I couldn't find earlier. It turned out it was in my pocket. So I'll go ahead and give you those now to encourage everyone to make every day of the year a holiday. Again, synonyms are things like anniversary, break, celebration, feast, festival, festivity, fiesta, gala, holy day, jubilee, liberty, long weekends, red letter days. And the antonym, the only antonym listed for holiday is workday. So encourage everyone to try to forget about those work days, concentrate on the holidays, the celebrations, and Whether it's a workday or a holiday, attend your nearest Toastmasters club as often as possible.
Thank you for the plug, Joe. And our last report today is the timer report. The prepared speeches and the table topics, the 4 people who responded to the questions that we didn't know what they were beforehand, are timed. If you've ever been to an unproductive meeting, oftentimes they go on and on and on and on. So one of the things that we try and do in Toastmasters is to give you a target time frame for your speeches. For example, a target time frame for a speech may be 5 to 7 minutes. And you can't see it from the camera, but off camera, we are given a green card or a green light when you hit the 5-minute mark, the lower point of the speech time frame, a yellow card at 6, and then a red card at 7 to let you know that time is up. Helps us keep on track and not get too long-winded. So, Verna, how did we do today on our timer report?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Well, the purpose of timing is to help to train the speakers to express a thought within a specific time. And for the table topics, the time was to be 1 to 2 minutes. Now, we had 3 speakers who did not quite make it to that 1-minute mark, so I might suggest that you watch the lights and try to get to that 1-minute mark. Jane had 46 seconds, Veronica was 56 seconds, Ed was 43 seconds, but Laura was 1 minute and 3 seconds, so she made it to the targeted time frame. All right, our speakers today, Darren. On the first part of his speech, Darren, you wanted to have 5 to 7 minutes, and you were actually 6 minutes and 29 seconds. Your question and answer was to be 2 to 3 minutes, and you were 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So you were just about within your total time frame, which would have been 10 minutes. You were a little bit over. Gary, your time was to be 8 to 10 minutes, and you actually had 10 minutes and 22 seconds, so giving you a 30-second leeway, you were within your time frame. Evaluators, Carol, you were 3 minutes and 3 seconds. George was 56 seconds, so George, you might try to stretch that out a little bit more. We try to have 2 to 3 minutes on evaluations. For the other roles, generally 2 to 3 minutes, so Joe's word power was 1 minute and 41 seconds. You were just a little bit short there. Your grammarian report was 1 minute and 35 seconds. So Joe, I'm a little surprised you were short on both of those. That's okay. So all in all, we did a great job with the staying within the time frame today. Thank you.
Thank you, Verna. Thank you, everybody, for evaluating the events of the club and taking the times and filling those roles. And now I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Rita Reece. Rita?
We've had a nice meeting here today. I hope everybody's going to have a good holiday coming up here. And to not take any more of your time unnecessarily, I think our president has a few words in closing that he would like to talk to us about. Our president, Gary Reece.
How about another hand for our Toastmaster today? Being a Toastmaster means that you care about what it is you say to other people. How effectively can you say it? As you get older, you become wiser. And when you become wiser, you find ways to say more with less words. This is the key idea behind being a Toastmaster, how to say more with fewer words. I ask each and every one of you out there to consider coming to our club. We are located right on Beachmont Avenue, right in a little strip mall. The address is the Henderson Union Cable Television Station, AUCT. Just look it up and do a map quest on that. We're very easy to find. We're here the third Saturday at 9 a.m. of each month. The third Saturday at 9 a.m. At this point in time, I would like to ask for a couple comments from our guests. I would like to have none other than the president of Luxottica, Mr. Ed Reardon, come up and just tell us what your thoughts were of the meeting today.
As a guest to the TV Toastmasters meeting, this is my second visit out here. I very much enjoy it. It's a great opportunity, first, to meet other people, second of all, to get a new experience. Because many times all of us have conversations, we're involved in meetings, or other communication styles where we're not in front of a camera. We're used to those, but this gives us another opportunity to stretch our imagination and stretch our experience a little bit further to help develop those communication skills that we're already learning as part of Toastmasters. And if you're not part of Toastmasters yet, I encourage you to join. A great opportunity to learn communication and leadership skills. And having just a few short months of knowledge and friendship with Gary, it's been a great experience as part of a new club, and learning very many different things about what it takes to organize and communicate with many, many different people. Thank you again, and look forward to coming back.
Thank you. I'm going to have two other guests come up here. The next one I'm going to ask to come up is Veronica Sanford. Would you come up and tell us what you thought of today's meeting, Veronica?
I came very excited today because for me, and for anyone who has a passion about life, I think that you can communicate to the people in your life one-on-one or in a group setting very effectively over time. But if you want to get your point across, if you have a passion, if you really want to convince people, one of the best ways to do is to get on television. And the nice thing about TV Toastmasters is it gives you an opportunity to learn how to do that effectively, possibly even before you have to.
The last guest I would like to invite to come up here is none other than Scott Gayfield. Come on up here, Scott. Tell us what you thought of the meeting today. Give him a big round of applause. What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty fun today. This is the first time I have pretty much ever been on TV, and when I grow up, I also want to be a Toastmaster.
Great.
Hey, yeah.
There you have it, a testimonial out of the mouths of babes. Okay, I'd like to thank our cameraman, Mr. Steve Pelzel, and Mr. Mike Schaefer. I'd like to thank our director in the back, Mr. Rick Davis. And with that, we will call a conclusion to Toastmasters Advanced Club 9523 for this month.